The morning sun slipped through the dusty windows of the small grocery store on Maple Street. It wasn't a fancy supermarket, just a local place where people came for milk, bread, and their daily things. The air smelled faintly of detergent, ripe bananas, and brewed coffee from the tiny machine near the counter. Behind the cash register stood Maya, wearing her faded blue uniform and a name tag that had lost its shine. She had been working here for almost 2 years. Every day felt the same, yet she tried to smile at everyone who came through her line. It wasn't easy. Her feet hurt most of the time, and the pay barely covered her rent and bus fare. But she told herself that kindness didn't cost anything. The store was busy in the mornings. Some customers were polite. Others treated her like she was invisible. A few didn't even look up from their phones as she scanned their groceries. Still, Maya kept her soft tone and said the same line every time. "Good morning. Did you find everything you needed today?" One man never answered. He was tall but thin, wearing an old jacket that looked a size too big for him. His hair was messy, his shoes worn out. He usually bought the same few things: instant noodles, a small loaf of bread, sometimes a jar of instant coffee. He always paid in cash, counting every coin carefully before handing it over. The other workers sometimes whispered about him when he left. "He probably lives on the street," one cashier said once, rolling her eyes. "Always buying the cheapest stuff." Another laughed and added, "Maybe he just doesn't like to shower." Maya never joined those conversations. She didn't like judging people. Everyone had their own struggles, and she had enough of her own. So when the man came to her counter, she always smiled and said, "Hey there, how's your day going?" Even if he didn't say much back. Sometimes he'd nod or give a quiet fine. Other times he'd just give a shy smile before heading out with his small paper bag. But she noticed that every time she greeted him kindly, his eyes softened a little, like her words made a small difference. Life outside work wasn't much easier for Maya. She lived in a small one-room apartment on the edge of town. The walls were thin, and she could hear her neighbor's TV through the night. Her phone was cracked, and her shoes had seen better days. Still, she tried not to complain. On her way to work, she would grab a cheap coffee from the gas station and remind herself that each day was another chance to be better, even if things were slow. At the store, she had to deal with a manager named Mr. Collins, who cared more about numbers than people. He often walked around with a tablet, checking inventory, always in a hurry. If he saw Maya chatting with a customer for too long, he'd frown and remind her, "We're here to sell, not socialize." But Maya couldn't help it. She liked talking to people. There was an elderly woman who came in every Tuesday for milk and cat food, and Maya would always help her reach the top shelf. There was a young couple who always argued in front of the cereal aisle, and Maya secretly rooted for them to make up each time. She noticed people, their moods, their habits, the little things that others didn't see. The man with the old jacket, though, remained a mystery. He came almost every other day, never in a rush, always quiet. Once Maya asked if he needed help finding anything. He hesitated before saying, "No, thank you. I'm just looking." His voice was calm, low, and polite, nothing like what her coworkers assumed. One chilly morning, the store was unusually quiet. A cold wind had swept through the town and people were staying indoors. Maya stood behind her counter, warming her hands around a paper cup of coffee. The automatic door opened and she saw the man again. His jacket was soaked from the rain outside and drops of water ran down his sleeves. He looked tired. Maya quickly put down her coffee and greeted him with her usual warmth. "Good morning. Cold out there, huh?" He gave a faint smile. "Yeah, feels like winter already." She nodded. "You can leave your bag near the counter if it's too heavy to carry around." He looked surprised by her offer but thanked her quietly. He went to the back of the store, walking slowly as if each step was thought out. When he came back to pay, he had just a few items: a pack of noodles, some bread, and a can of soup. She scanned the items, trying not to notice how carefully he was counting his money. When he finally handed it over, she realized he was a few coins short. The total was $8.47, and he had $8.25. He looked down, embarrassed, as if trying to decide which item to return. Before he could say anything, Maya gently said, "It's okay. I got it." She scanned her employee card and covered the missing amount. His head shot up, startled. No, I can come back later." "It's fine," she said with a smile. "It's just a few cents." "Happens all the time?" He hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Thank you," he said softly, his voice full of sincerity. "You didn't have to do that." "I know," she replied. "But you look like you could use a warm meal tonight." For a brief moment their eyes met. It wasn't pity in hers nor shame in his, just a quiet understanding between two people trying to get through life. He took the bag, nodded again, and left without another word. Not long after he left, Mr. Collins appeared beside her counter, frowning. "Maya, did you just pay for a customer again?" She blinked. It was just a few cents. He was short, and the line was, "That's not your money to give away," he interrupted sharply. "We're not running a charity here. You do that again, it's coming out of your paycheck." She wanted to argue, but didn't. She just nodded. "Understood, sir." He walked off, muttering something about soft-hearted workers. Maya sighed and went back to scanning items for the next customer, forcing herself to keep her smile. Inside, though, she couldn't shake the small ache in her chest. It wasn't about the money. It was about how hard the world could be sometimes, how people could lose their empathy so easily. Later that day, during her lunch break, she sat outside the store with a sandwich she'd brought from home. The air was cold and she could see her breath forming little clouds. She thought about the man again, his quiet manner, the way he said thank you like it really meant something. Most people said those words out of habit, but his had weight to them. She didn't know why she cared so much. Maybe because she understood what it felt like to struggle and still want to be treated with respect. Her mother used to tell her, "You can't control what you have, but you can control how you treat people." Those words had stuck with her. The day went on. More customers came, some kind, some rude, some just tired. By evening, her back hurt, and she could barely keep her eyes open. But when she saw the small children smiling as she handed them candies or helped an elderly man count his change, it made the long hours feel worth it. As she was about to clock out, she noticed something near the counter, a small folded piece of paper tucked beside the receipt printer. She opened it. Inside was a simple note written in neat handwriting. "Thank you for being kind when you didn't have to. Not many people are like that anymore." There was no name, but she knew who it was from. She smiled, folded the note carefully, and slipped it into her pocket. That night, as she sat by her small window eating dinner, the city lights flickered in the distance. She looked at the note again, feeling a strange warmth in her chest. She didn't know who that man really was or what story he carried, but something about him felt different, like there was more behind his quiet eyes. She didn't know that this small act of kindness would soon change her life in ways she could never imagine. For now, though, she just smiled to herself, grateful that her simple words and a few cents could make someone's day a little brighter. Sometimes, she thought, the world didn't need grand gestures. It just needed someone to care, and that was something she would never stop doing. The next few days passed quietly at the store. Maya kept doing her job as usual, scanning groceries, smiling at customers, answering questions, and trying to keep her energy up. The routine had become second nature to her, but a small part of her mind often drifted to the man with the old jacket. She hadn't seen him since that rainy morning. She wondered if he was okay. Maybe he'd found another place to shop, or maybe he just didn't want to show his face again after being short on money. Maya hoped that wasn't the case. She hadn't helped him for thanks or attention. She just couldn't bear to see someone struggle like that over a few coins. The weather had turned colder that week. The mornings were foggy, and customers came in wrapped in scarves and gloves. The heater inside the store wasn't strong enough, so Maya always wore an extra sweater under her uniform. She tried to stay cheerful, greeting everyone with her usual warmth even when her hands felt like ice. One evening, near closing time, the door slid open and a rush of cold air swept through. Maya looked up from her register, and there he was, the man in the old jacket. He looked more tired than before, his face pale, his clothes even more worn. His shoes were soaked, leaving small wet marks on the floor as he walked in. "Good evening," Maya said softly, happy to see him again. He nodded. "Evening." His voice sounded rough, like he hadn't spoken much that day. He moved slowly through the aisles, picking out a few small things, a cup of instant noodles, a can of beans, and a small pack of biscuits. Maya watched quietly as he walked up to the counter. She could see his hands trembling slightly, maybe from the cold. As she scanned the items, she asked gently, "Long day?" He gave a weak smile. You could say that. When she read out the total, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, crumpled wallet. It looked even more worn than before, the edges frayed, the leather peeling. He took out some bills, but they were wet from the rain. The coins slipped from his fingers and scattered on the counter. Sorry, he muttered, trying to gather them quickly. His voice carried a mix of embarrassment and exhaustion. It's okay, take your time, Maya said, helping him pick up the coins. Her hands brushed against his, and she noticed how cold his fingers were. He counted carefully, but when he finished, he frowned. He was short again, this time by nearly $1. He looked at the total on the screen, then back at the can of beans. I'll put this one back, he said quietly. Maya hesitated. She could hear her manager's voice in her head. We're not running a charity. But when she saw the man's tired eyes, she couldn't ignore her heart. She remembered how grateful he'd been last time, and how that small act had cost her almost nothing. So she smiled and said, Don't worry about it. It's fine, he looked at her, confused. Are you sure? I can come back tomorrow. It's just $1, she said lightly. Consider it a rainy day discount. For a moment he didn't move. Then he gave a quiet laugh, the first real one she'd heard from him. You're too kind, he said softly. Not many people are like that anymore. Maya shrugged, pretending it wasn't a big deal. Everyone needs a little help sometimes. He thanked her again, this time looking straight into her eyes. There was something warm but sad in his expression, like he wanted to say more but couldn't find the words. Then he picked up the bag and left, disappearing into the cold night. A few seconds later, Maya heard the sharp sound of shoes tapping against the floor. She turned around and there was Mr. Collins, her manager, arms crossed, eyebrows raised. What did I just see? He asked in his usual flat, sharp tone. Maya froze. I was just helping a customer. By giving away store money again? He interrupted. Maya, we've been through this. It was only $1, sir, she said softly. That's not the point, he said, his voice rising slightly. If everyone gave away $1, we'd be out of business by the end of the week. You can't keep doing this just because you feel sorry for people. Maya looked down at the counter, trying not to let her frustration show. I wasn't trying to break rules. He didn't have enough, and I just wanted to help. Mr. Collins sighed and rubbed his forehead. You have a good heart, Maya, but this is a business, not a shelter. If you want to help people, do it outside of work. She wanted to argue, but she knew it wouldn't change anything. He didn't understand. To him, kindness was something that slowed down efficiency, not something that made life bearable. I'm sorry, she said quietly. Just don't do it again, he said, walking away. When he left, Maya stood still for a moment, staring at the counter. She felt a mix of anger and sadness. Was it really so wrong to be kind? To her, it was never about money. It was about showing someone they mattered. But in this world, that kind of thing seemed to be treated like a weakness. She finished her shift quietly that night. When she finally left the store, the rain had stopped, but the air was still cold and damp. She wrapped her coat tightly around her and walked toward the bus stop. The streets were almost empty, only the sound of her footsteps and the faint hum of cars in the distance. While waiting for the bus, she saw someone sitting on the bench at the far end of the stop. It was him, the same man from the store. He looked surprised to see her. Oh, he said softly. You're the cashier. Maya smiled. Yeah, you heading home? He gave a small nod. Trying to? The bus is late, though. They stood in silence for a few seconds, watching the empty road. Then she asked gently, Do you live around here? Sort of, he said, hesitating. Just a few blocks away. She didn't press further. Instead, she said, It's freezing tonight. Make sure you stay warm. He smiled faintly. I'll manage. I always do. When the bus finally arrived, Maya got on first. She turned back and saw him still sitting there, as if unsure whether to board. Aren't you coming? She asked. He shook his head. Next one's fine. I'm waiting for someone. She didn't know if that was true, but she didn't question it. As the bus pulled away, she looked out the window and saw him still there, sitting quietly under the flickering streetlight. For some reason, her heart ached a little. That night, she couldn't sleep. The image of him sitting alone in the cold stayed in her mind. She wondered what his story was. Where did he live? Did he have a family? Why did he always look so tired yet so calm? She wanted to ask, but she also knew people carried private battles they rarely talked about. The next morning, she went to work early. The store was quiet. just the hum of the refrigerators and the faint crackle of the radio playing soft music. As she arranged the counter, she noticed a small envelope taped to the register. There was no name, just the words "for you." Inside was a simple note that read, "Thank you again for your kindness. You didn't just help me. You reminded me that good people still exist." There was a folded $5 bill inside. Maya smiled and shook her head. "You didn't have to do that," she whispered, even though he wasn't there to hear her. She tucked the note carefully into her pocket, planning to return the money next time she saw him. But for several days, he didn't come back. Each time the door opened, she glanced up, half expecting to see his familiar face, but it was always someone else. The days blurred into one another. Customers came and went, the weather grew colder, and the holiday decorations started appearing around the store. Maya tried to stay cheerful, but she couldn't help feeling a little disappointed. Then one late afternoon, as she was restocking the candy near her register, she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Looks like you've been busy." She turned quickly, and there he was, standing in front of her with a gentle smile. His jacket was cleaner and his hair was trimmed. He looked different, more rested somehow. "You're back," she said, smiling. "I was starting to think you'd moved away." He chuckled softly. "No, just been sorting some things out. I got your note," she said. "And your money." "You didn't have to do that." "I wanted to," he replied simply. "You helped me when you didn't have to. I just wanted to return the kindness." Maya didn't know what to say. There was something about the way he spoke. Calm, confident, almost like someone who carried more experience than he let on. As he paid for his things, she noticed how different he seemed that day. His hands no longer trembling, his eyes steady. Before he left, he said quietly, "You know, not many people notice the small things anymore. You did. And I won't forget that." Maya smiled, though she didn't fully understand what he meant. She just thought he was being polite. She had no idea that the quiet man in the worn jacket was someone far more important than anyone could guess. That night, as she walked home, she felt lighter somehow. She didn't know why. But she had a feeling their paths weren't finished crossing yet. Sometimes life had a strange way of rewarding simple kindness. She didn't know it yet. But this small connection, born out of a few cents and a smile, was only the beginning of something far bigger than she could ever imagine. The week started like any other. Maya arrived early, as she always did, with a cup of cheap coffee in her hand and a quiet sigh before stepping into the store. The air smelled faintly of bread and disinfectant. The aisles were still half empty, waiting to be filled. She clocked in, put on her apron, and greeted the early customers with her usual soft smile. Her co-workers were half awake, and Mr. Collins was already pacing near the produce section, barking reminders about inventory. It felt like a normal day, but something in the air felt different, subtle, like a calm before something unexpected. Around mid-morning, a delivery truck arrived with boxes of canned food and cleaning supplies. Maya helped unpack them, wiping her forehead as she worked. She liked keeping busy. It made the hours pass faster. When she went back to the counter, she noticed a few unfamiliar faces. 3 men in formal suits were standing near the entrance, looking around. They weren't the usual customers. They had serious expressions, carrying tablets and folders. One of them was talking quietly into an earpiece. Her manager noticed them too. He straightened up quickly, smoothing his shirt and adjusting his tie. Then he walked over to greet them with a forced smile. "Good morning, gentlemen," he said in his most professional voice. "How can I help you today?" The tallest man glanced up from his tablet. "We're here for a store evaluation." Mr. Collins's smile faltered. "Oh, of course. I wasn't informed, but please make yourselves comfortable. Would you like me to give you a quick tour?" The men didn't answer right away. They looked around, quietly observing everything. The shelves, the counters, the customers, the staff. Maya stood still behind her register, not sure what to do. The atmosphere in the store shifted. Everyone seemed more alert, more cautious. Her coworker whispered, "I think they're from the head office." Maya nodded slowly. It made sense. People in suits didn't usually show up in small neighborhood branches unless something big was happening. The men began walking through the aisles, noting things on their tablets. They spoke quietly to each other, occasionally stopping to check prices or watch how employees interacted with customers. Maya kept doing her job, but her heart beat a little faster. She wanted to do everything right, no mistakes, no delays. She didn't want to give Mr. Collins another reason to complain. After about 20 minutes, the men gathered near the front of the store. Mr. Collins was talking non-stop, trying to sound confident. We've been maintaining consistent sales, customer satisfaction scores are good, and our inventory rotation is. Before he could finish, the automatic doors opened again. Everyone turned toward the entrance. A man stepped inside, tall, with short, neatly combed hair, wearing a dark gray suit. His shoes shined under the lights and his expression was calm, unreadable. He didn't look like a customer. He looked like someone important. For a moment, Maya couldn't breathe. She recognized him immediately. It was the same man who used to buy noodles and bread. The same man with the worn-out jacket and tired eyes. But now he looked completely different. Confident, clean-cut, and unmistakably authoritative. Her hands froze over the register. Her mind scrambled to make sense of it. Mr. Collins rushed toward him with a nervous smile. "Good morning, sir. I didn't realize we'd be having company from the corporate team today." "Welcome to our store," the man nodded politely. "Good morning, Mr. Collins." The fact that he knew the manager's name made everyone pause. Maya just stared. She couldn't believe it. The quiet man who had counted coins in front of her was now standing there, surrounded by executives, being treated like a leader. Her stomach flipped. Mr. Collins tried to hide his nerves. "Would you like to see our backroom storage? We just reorganized the inventory system." The man smiled faintly. "We'll get to that. But first I want to observe how your staff interact with customers." He said it calmly, but there was a firmness in his tone that made even the other executives straighten up. The manager nodded quickly. "Of course, sir. We take customer service very seriously." As they moved around the store, the man's eyes drifted toward Maya's counter. Their gaze met for just a second. He gave her a small, knowing smile, so subtle that no one else seemed to notice. Her heart pounded. She didn't know if she should smile back or look away. The group continued inspecting the store for another half hour. They checked cleanliness, organization, and how customers were treated. Maya stayed professional, helping customers calmly even though her mind was spinning. Finally, the group gathered near her register again. The man in the gray suit looked around the store once more before speaking. "I think I've seen enough," he said simply. The executives nodded. Mr. Collins looked nervous. "Was everything satisfactory, sir?" The man turned to face everyone. "Before I answer that, I want to share something." The room grew quiet. Even customers nearby stopped to listen. He continued. "For the past few months, I've been visiting several of our branches personally, not as an executive, but as an ordinary shopper. I wanted to see how our employees treat people when they think no one important is watching." Maya's breath caught. He went on, his tone calm but steady. "At many stores, I saw staff ignore customers. Some were rude. Some only cared about finishing their shifts. But here," he turned slightly toward Maya, "I met someone who reminded me what genuine service and kindness look like." Every head turned toward her. Maya froze. Her cheeks burned. She didn't know where to look. Mr. Collins blinked, confused. "You mean her?" The man nodded. "Yes, her." He stepped closer to the counter. "This young woman treated me with respect when everyone else looked past me. She never judged me by how I looked. She helped me when I couldn't afford a few cents, even when it got her in trouble. That's the kind of person this company needs more of." The store went completely silent. Maya stood speechless. Her hands trembled slightly on the counter. She had no idea this man was anyone important, let alone someone from the company's top management. Mr. Collins's face turned pale. I didn't realize." The man cut him off gently but firmly. "That's the point. You didn't realize. You judged me by appearance like many others did, but she didn't." He looked at Maya again, his voice softening. "You reminded me that kindness still exists in small places. Thank you for that." Maya didn't know what to say. "I was just doing my job," she whispered. He smiled. "No, you were doing more than that." Then he turned back to the group of executives. "I want to make something clear. This store's environment needs improvement, but the way this employee treats people, that's what our company should represent." The executives nodded, some writing notes quickly. Mr. Collins looked like he wanted to disappear. He muttered something about better training, but the man didn't respond. After a few moments, the man extended his hand toward Maya. "Thank you again. You reminded me why I started this business in the first place." Maya hesitated, then shook his hand. His grip was firm but gentle. When the group finally left the store, the silence that followed felt heavy. The other employees gathered around her, whispering. Some were amazed, others in disbelief. "Wait, he's the regional owner?" One of them asked. Apparently, another said, "Can you believe it?" He was testing everyone. Maya stood quietly, still trying to process everything. She looked at the door where he had walked out, half expecting him to turn back. Mr. Collins approached her, his voice awkward. "Well, it seems you made quite an impression." Maya didn't answer. She wasn't sure how to feel. She hadn't done anything special, at least not in her mind. She had just been kind to someone who looked like they needed it. As she finished her shift that day, everything felt different. The customers' voices seemed softer, the lights brighter. When she walked home, the air felt lighter somehow. She kept thinking about his words. "You reminded me why I started this business." What did that mean exactly? Maybe he had his own story of struggle. Maybe once, long ago, he too had stood behind a counter somewhere, being ignored by people who thought they were better. Whatever the reason, she felt a quiet warmth inside her heart. Not pride, just peace. That night, as she sat in her small apartment with a bowl of soup, she replayed the entire day in her mind. The suits, the silence, the shock. She smiled to herself. Sometimes life had a funny way of revealing the truth. You never really knew who was watching, or how far a small act of kindness could reach. And though she didn't realize it yet, this was only the beginning. What came next would surprise not just her, but everyone around her. The man she had once helped out of kindness had just changed her entire future with a single decision. The next morning, the store felt completely different. The same shelves stood in the same places. The same soft music played through the speakers, and yet everyone behaved as if the world had shifted overnight. People whispered quietly when Maya walked in. Some smiled politely. Others avoided eye contact. Even Mr. Collins, usually loud and controlling, greeted her in an unusually soft voice. "Good morning, Maya," he said, forcing a smile. "Glad you're on time today." She nodded. "Good morning," he cleared his throat. "About yesterday? That was quite the surprise, wasn't it?" She looked at him. "Yes, it was," he tried to laugh. "I mean, who would have guessed that quiet guy was the regional owner?" Maya smiled faintly but didn't respond. She wasn't sure what to say. Everything still felt unreal. The rest of the staff couldn't stop talking about it. Her coworker Lena whispered, "I still can't believe it. You helped the boss when he was dressed like a poor man. You're like something out of a movie." Maya laughed lightly, though she still felt nervous inside. It wasn't a big deal. "I didn't even know who he was." "That's the point," Lena said. "You didn't know, but you helped him anyway. That's what makes it amazing." Throughout the day, Maya tried to stay focused on her work. Customers came and went, and she greeted each one with her usual warmth. But deep down, she couldn't stop replaying yesterday's moment, the way the man had stood in front of everyone, praising her. The way he'd said she reminded him of why he started the business. Those words had stuck in her heart. By afternoon, the store's phone rang. Mr. Collins answered it, and his expression changed almost instantly. His usual arrogance vanished, replaced by nervous respect. "Yes, sir." "Of course, sir." "She's here right now," he said quickly, glancing toward Maya. She looked up, confused. When he hung up, he cleared his throat and said, "Maya, the regional office wants to see you." Her eyebrows lifted. "Me? Why?" "They didn't say," he replied. "But it's probably good news. You should go now. They're expecting you this afternoon." Maya felt her stomach twist with nerves. "All right. I'll go after my shift." "No need to wait," he said quickly. "I'll cover for you. You can leave early." She nodded slowly, still unsure what to think. The regional office was about 30 minutes away by bus. She changed into her cleanest clothes before leaving. Dark jeans, a neat blouse, and the only pair of decent shoes she owned. On the bus ride there, she stared out the window, trying to calm herself. The trees along the road were losing their leaves, the air already hinting at winter. When she arrived, the building looked huge and professional. The glass doors reflected the afternoon sun, and people in business clothes hurried in and out. Maya felt small as she stepped inside. At the front desk, a friendly receptionist smiled. Can I help you? Yes, Maya said nervously. I'm here to see, I think his name is Mr. Ethan, from the regional office. The receptionist typed something on her computer. Ah, yes. He's expecting you. Please take the elevator to the 5th floor. Her hands trembled slightly as she pressed the elevator button. She could hear her heartbeat echoing in her ears. When the doors opened, a calm, modern office greeted her. Bright lights, quiet voices, and the faint scent of coffee. A woman led her down a hallway to a large room with glass walls. Inside, the man she knew stood by the window, looking out over the city. He turned when he heard her enter. Maya, he said with a smile. I'm glad you came, she nodded nervously. You wanted to see me? Yes, please have a seat. She sat down, clutching her hands together to keep them from shaking. He studied her for a moment, his expression kind but serious. I owe you an explanation, he began. When we first met, I wasn't just shopping. I was visiting several of our stores in disguise. I wanted to see how employees treated regular customers, especially the ones who didn't look rich or important. Maya listened quietly. He continued, I've built this company from the ground up. I started as a cashier myself a long time ago, but as the business grew, I felt like I was losing touch with the people who make it work, so I decided to go undercover for a while. She blinked, still trying to process everything. That's really unexpected, he smiled softly. I wanted to see the truth. And what I saw in your store was rare. Most people treated me like I didn't matter. But you were kind. You didn't judge me for how I looked. You even paid out of your own pocket when I couldn't. That says a lot about who you are. Her cheeks warmed. I just did what felt right. I wasn't thinking about anything else. That's exactly why it mattered, he said. Real kindness never asks for attention. It just happens naturally. She didn't know how to respond. He walked over to his desk and picked up a folder. After yesterday's visit, I spoke with the board. We've decided to create a new position for you. Customer Relations Supervisor. You'll be responsible for training other cashiers and staff on customer care and empathy. Maya's mouth fell open slightly. Me? But I'm just a cashier, he smiled. You're more than that. You understand people. You see them, not just their wallets. That's what this company needs. She felt her throat tighten. I don't know what to say. Say yes, he said gently. The position comes with a salary increase, benefits, and full training. You've earned it. Tears filled her eyes before she could stop them. I never imagined something like this would happen to me. He handed her the folder. You deserve it. And one more thing. Your story reminded me that leadership isn't about suits or titles. It's about how you treat people when no one's watching. Maya looked down, smiling through her tears. Thank you. I don't even know how to thank you enough. You already did, he said kindly. By being yourself. They talked for a while longer about the new role, the training schedule, and the company's future plans. Before she left, he said, Maya, I hope you never lose the kindness that makes you different. The world needs more people like you. When she stepped out of the building, the sun was beginning to set. The sky glowed orange and pink, and the city buzzed with evening life. She walked slowly to the bus stop, clutching the folder to her chest. It felt surreal. Just days ago, she was worrying about paying rent. Now she had been offered a job she'd never even dreamed of. When she got home, she placed the folder on her small table and stared at it. Her name printed neatly on the cover looked unreal. She sat down and covered her face with her hands, letting the emotions wash over her. Relief, disbelief, gratitude. That night she called her mother. Her voice trembled with excitement as she told her everything. Her mother cried on the other end. I always told you, good things come to people who do good, she said softly. You've worked so hard for this, sweetheart. Maya smiled through her tears. I didn't do anything special, Mom. I just treated someone kindly. That's what makes it special, her mother replied. The next morning, when Maya returned to the store, everyone greeted her differently. Lena hugged her, saying, We heard the news. You're getting promoted. I'm so happy for you. Even Mr. Collins shook her hand, though awkwardly. Congratulations, Maya, he said stiffly. Looks like you'll be teaching all of us now. She smiled politely. Thank you, sir. Throughout the day, she noticed how customers looked at her differently, like she was someone worth noticing now. But she didn't let it get to her head. She still greeted everyone the same way with the same gentle smile. Later that week, the man visited again. This time he came in without his team. Just him, quietly walking through the aisles like before. When he reached her counter, she laughed softly. "You're back?" He smiled. "I wanted to see if the service is still as good as before." She laughed. "You'll always get good service here." He placed a small box on the counter. A small gift, to say thank you. Inside was a simple silver pen engraved with the words, "Kindness changes everything." Maya traced the words with her finger, speechless. He smiled. "Keep that as a reminder. No matter how high you go, never stop being who you are." "I won't," she promised. When he left, she looked at the pen again and felt her heart swell with quiet pride. The next few weeks flew by. Maya began training at the regional office, learning about leadership, communication, and management. It wasn't easy, some days were overwhelming, but she stayed patient. She wanted to do her best, not just for herself, but for the people who believed in her. Every time she doubted herself, she remembered that rainy day when she'd helped a stranger. It reminded her that even the smallest act of kindness could grow into something far bigger than anyone expected. And as the days went by, Maya started to believe that maybe life really did notice good people, just not always right away. Because sometimes kindness takes time to come full circle. And when it does, it changes everything. A month passed since Maya had been promoted, but it still felt unreal every time she walked into the regional office instead of her small grocery store. The first few days had been overwhelming. New faces, new responsibilities, endless meetings, but she was slowly finding her rhythm. The job was different from being a cashier. Now she was the one giving advice, guiding new employees, and making sure every customer who walked into their stores was treated with respect. She often visited different branches, observing how staff handled people and shared small lessons that came from her own experiences. She didn't see herself as a boss. She saw herself as someone who understood both sides, the customer who needed help and the worker who was just trying to survive another long shift. That understanding made people listen to her. They trusted her words because she spoke from the heart, not from a book. Still, there were moments when she missed her old register. She missed the quiet rhythm of scanning groceries, the familiar faces, the little conversations that made her day brighter. But whenever she visited her old store, everyone greeted her like she was a local hero. One afternoon, while she was helping train a new group of cashiers, her phone buzzed. It was a message from the regional director's office. They were inviting her to a company event the following week, a formal gathering for all store managers, supervisors, and senior staff. The message said she would be receiving a special recognition. Her heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected anything like that. She thought her story had already ended when she got the promotion. But it seemed like there was more to come. The week went by quickly. On the evening of the event, she wore a simple but elegant dress, a gift from her mother who had insisted she look her best. She tied her hair back neatly, put on a touch of makeup, and took the bus to the hotel where the ceremony was being held. The hall was grand and bright, filled with people in suits and dresses, laughing, shaking hands, and taking pictures. Maya felt out of place at first. She wasn't used to fancy events. But when she spotted the man who had changed her life standing near the stage, she felt calmer. He noticed her too, and gave her a warm smile. "I'm glad you made it," he said when she approached. "I wouldn't miss it," she replied, smiling back. He nodded toward the stage. "You might want to stay near the front tonight." She frowned lightly. "Why?" He just smiled mysteriously. "You'll see." Soon the event began. The company's executives gave speeches about growth, teamwork, and the importance of good service. Awards were handed out for sales, innovation, and leadership. Maya clapped for each person, proud of them even though she barely knew most of them. Then the host announced, "And now, we'd like to present a very special award, one that's not about numbers or profits, but about heart." The crowd grew quiet. This award goes to someone whose simple act of kindness reminded us all of what true service means. She treated a customer with compassion, not knowing he was our company's regional owner. Her actions have inspired new training programs across all branches. Please welcome our Employee of the Year, Maya. For a moment, Maya couldn't move. The room erupted in applause. People stood up, clapping and cheering. Her heart raced as she slowly walked to the stage. When she reached the podium, the man she once helped was there, holding a glass award with her name on it. He smiled as he handed it to her. You earned this, he said softly. She looked down at the award, her hands trembling. The light from the stage made it sparkle. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her voice as she faced the crowd. I don't really know what to say, she began, her voice honest and humble. I never thought something like this would happen to me. I used to stand behind a register every day, scanning groceries and greeting people. Most days I felt invisible. But I learned that even when life feels small, your kindness still matters. The room was silent. Listening closely, she continued, that day, when I helped a customer who was short on money, I didn't think anyone was watching. I just wanted to do something good, something simple. But now I know that even small choices can change everything. Maybe not for the whole world, but for someone. Her eyes found his in the crowd. He gave a small nod, encouraging her to go on. She smiled. I'm grateful for this company, and for everyone here who still believes kindness is stronger than profit. I hope all of us remember that the best thing we can give people isn't a discount or a receipt. It's respect. When she finished, the entire hall stood up again, clapping and cheering. Maya's eyes filled with tears. She bowed slightly, overwhelmed by the moment. After the ceremony, several people came up to shake her hand. Some thanked her for reminding them of what truly mattered. A few even said her story had changed the way they treated customers in their own stores. Later that evening, as most guests began leaving, Maya found herself standing outside the hotel under the night sky. The air was cool and quiet. She looked at the award in her hand, running her fingers over the engraved letters. She heard footsteps behind her. You spoke beautifully, said a familiar voice. She turned and smiled. You think so? I know so, he said, smiling back. You have a way of speaking that reaches people. It's not about fancy words, it's about truth. Thank you, she said softly. But really, you're the reason any of this happened. If you hadn't noticed that day, he shook his head gently. No, Maya, you're wrong. This isn't about me noticing you. It's about you noticing someone when no one else did. That's what makes you special. They stood quietly for a moment, watching the cars pass by. The city lights shimmered on the wet pavement, and for the first time, Maya felt like she truly belonged somewhere. I still can't believe how life turned out, she said after a pause. I was just trying to do my job. He smiled faintly. That's the beauty of it. The best people never try to impress anyone, they just do what's right. She looked up at the sky, feeling a deep sense of peace. It's strange, she said softly. I used to think no one saw me. But now I realize, sometimes the right people notice when you least expect it. He nodded. Exactly. Before leaving, he said, keep that heart of yours the same. Maya, don't ever let the world make it hard. I won't, she promised. When she got home that night, her small apartment didn't feel small anymore. She placed the award on her table next to the silver pen he had once given her. The words engraved on it still shone clearly. Kindness changes everything. She sat down beside it and smiled. Her phone buzzed, a message from her mother. Saw the pictures online. So proud of you, Maya replied. Thank you, Mom. Everything finally makes sense now. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to rest. The next day, she returned to work as usual, not as someone above others, but as the same person who had once stood behind a counter. She made it her mission to make every employee feel seen and every customer feel respected. Whenever new hires asked her how she managed to get promoted, she'd laugh softly and say, I just tried to be kind on a rainy day. Over time, her story became part of the company's training sessions. New employees would hear about the cashier who helped a struggling customer and ended up changing the company's culture. Some thought it was just a nice story. Others found it inspiring. But for Maya, it was simply real life. She didn't seek attention or fame. She just wanted to remind people that being kind didn't make you weak, it made you human. Years later, when the company grew even larger and opened more branches across the country, her photo still hung in the training hall. Beneath it, a quote from her speech was engraved on a small plaque. Even when life feels small, your kindness still matters. And everyone who read those words would pause, smile, and maybe look at the next person a little differently. Because sometimes, the smallest kindness from an ordinary person can start a chain of goodness that never really ends. And that's exactly what Maya had done. She had proven that even in a busy world filled with rules, deadlines, and numbers, one small act from the heart could leave a mark that would never fade. The rain had started again outside, light and gentle, tapping softly against her window as she watched from her little apartment. She held her silver pen and whispered the words once more to herself, words that had shaped her life. Kindness changes everything. And she smiled, knowing now that it truly did.